on? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, and good morning to everybody. I am very glad that I'm able to present to you some of my views and thinking in relation to the issue of development and indigenous peoples, and address what are the priorities of indigenous peoples in relation to sustainable development. Having chaired the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, I have been very much involved in the discussion on indigenous peoples' development with culture and identity. And as the Madam Moderator has mentioned, this has been a key issue that we have been involved with for a long time. And in fact, I was present in 1992 in Rio during the UN Conference on Environment and Development, where Chapter 26 of Agenda 21, which is on the role of indigenous peoples and their communities in sustainable development, was agreed upon, and it became part of the major document which spelled out the global agenda for sustainable development. I also have been involved in the various +5 and +10 processes related to this. And recently, we have been engaged actively in the open-ended working group on sustainable development goals and the processes around the post-2015 development agenda. And of course, since this is really a key issue for indigenous peoples everywhere, those of us who were in ALTA would recall that that was really the theme, one of the major themes we identified, which should be addressed by the World Conference on Indigenous Peoples, and therefore we had the theme 4, which is on the priorities of indigenous peoples in development with free, prior, and informed consent. And all the 9 items under the ALTA outcome document are very important. Those captured basically the essence of what we would like to see in the development debate, as well as the development agenda work here within the United Nations. And I won't reiterate all of this because all of you have the ALTA outcome document. And I guess that should be the major reference point when we start talking about indigenous people's priorities on development. Today, what I would like to do is to really briefly share what I think were achieved and not achieved, and what can still be possibly achieved within the open-ended working group on sustainable development goals, as well as at the post-2015 development agenda, and how this relates with the work that we are doing in the World Conference on Indigenous Peoples. I will also try to highlight some of the big picture issues which I think are important for states to think about, because we would like to really work in partnership with states to address these big development issues which are staring right into our faces as we face the development and environmental crisis that all of us are suffering from. So just to reiterate again, the 9 points of the ALTA outcome document has always been the basis of our advocacy work in the working group, as well as the post-2015 development agenda. If you have been following this process, yesterday actually the meeting of the open-ended working group on sustainable development goals met, and in earlier part of the month they released the zero outcome document on the sustainable development goals. That these sustainable development goals have to be attained by 2030, and these are going to be fed into the processes of post-2015 development agenda to be with the hope that this will also be adopted as the post-2015 development goals. Very briefly, I just want to highlight what are these goals that were identified, just to put us all in the same page. The first goal was to end poverty and reduce inequality in all their dimensions everywhere. The second goal is to end hunger, achieve food security and adequate nutrition for all, and promote sustainable agriculture. Third, is to attain healthy life for all at all ages. Fourth, provide equitable and inclusive quality education. And fifth, attain gender equality, empower women and girls. Six, secure water and sanitation for all for a sustainable world. Seventh, ensure access to affordable, sustainable, and reliable modern energy services for all. Eight, promote strong, inclusive, sustainable economic growth, infrastructure, full employment, and decent work for all. Ninth, sustainable industrialization. 10th, safe, sustainable cities and human settlements. 11, sustainable consumption and production patterns. 12, sustainable use of marine resources, oceans, and seas. 13, protect and restore terrestrial ecosystems and halt all biodiversity loss. 15, achieve peaceful and inclusive societies and strengthen the rule of law, effective and capable institutions. And finally, strengthen and enhance means of implementation and global partnership for sustainable development. So if you look at these goals, of course, there's nothing mentioned on indigenous peoples, because these are like generic goals that should apply for everybody. And what the indigenous peoples major group have been trying to do is to put targets and goals which are relevant for us that will be applicable to these specific goals. So for instance, we finally got the zero outcome document, and we can report to you that what we got are a few. Initially, we only got 2 of all the agenda items that we wanted to bring in. And because we tried to lobby very hard during the permanent forum, now we have 5 references in the whole text. The first one is the proposed goal on food security, which is target it has a target 2.9 that we managed to bring in, achieve by 2030, protection and sustainable use of agricultural biodiversity, including through enhanced use and application of indigenous practices and local and traditional knowledge, and through agricultural research in development related to agrobiodiversity and diversity of food. The second one is the proposed goal on education, which says that by 2030, ensure that people in vulnerable situations and marginalized people, including persons with disabilities, indigenous peoples, have access to inclusive education, skills for development, and vocational training. The third one is a goal on sustainable industrialization, which talks about indigenous technology development. And the fourth, goal on inequality, which says empower and promote the social inclusion of the poor, the marginalized peoples, including indigenous peoples, it's women, minorities, etc. And finally, the proposed goal on 15 on biodiversity says ensure free, prior, and informed consent of indigenous peoples and local communities in decision-making and natural resource management, and promote the use of their traditional knowledge. So these are the only things we got so far in this whole outcome document. I don't think we should be happy with this, so we should still be working hard to get more on these things. And we have proposed several points that I will not go through now, but it's included in the paper that I will make, and it will be put in the website as well for the states as well as for everybody to take a look into. The second part of my presentation is just to talk about the bigger picture, as what I think should be really the main development agenda as far as it relates to us indigenous peoples. First, we really are faced with a serious global crisis. We have the crisis of development. I guess it's not debatable anymore that the dominant development paradigm of short-term short-termism, the increasing role of just finance capital, speculation, and all that has really brought a major economic crisis, which we have to address because many of the world's economies, the economies in the countries today, are really just relying on short-term investments which are just being used to gamble, to bet on whether the price of gold or oil or minerals are going to fall or not. And then these people who have all the money will keep on betting until they will get the biggest profits that they can generate. They don't invest anymore in industrial production or manufacturing. Most people, most rich people in the world are just investing in the casino, in the global casino of speculative finance. And that is why there is the biggest inequality that we face in the world today. The kind of inequality that we have now is unprecedented, and I think that we can see that for indigenous peoples who have still the territories, we still have control over some of our territories, but the immense poverty because of these kinds of development has really been affecting all of us. Yet, I think that in terms of what kind of alternative should be brought, it's indigenous peoples who have the biggest possibility of bringing the alternative thinking and visions and perspectives for development. And the major part of this work that we can contribute to is how we have stressed on the issue of culture and identity in the development processes. We cannot be talking about development without really stressing the human rights-based approach, which is increasingly being diminished within the United Nations, and to talk about the role of really equal partnership with states, but also with these corporations who are increasingly coming into our communities. When I was in Rio in 1992, I witnessed the end of the life of the UN Commission on Transnational Corporations and the Code of Conduct on Transnational Corporations, which is a very good code that should regulate the behavior of corporations. But that was the day when they announced that this Code of Conduct will not be adopted by the UN, and the Committee on Transnational Corporations and the Center for Transnational Corporations will no longer exist. And then along the years, we saw how the whole issue of public-private partnerships, the voluntary guidelines, all of these were the processes that were brought in, and no more role of the state in regulating the behavior of these corporations. And I think for indigenous peoples, this is a major issue because more and more we are faced with these entities of which nobody can control, and then we ourselves are so powerless because they can bring in their mercenaries to stop whatever resistance we have, as well as use so-called anti-terrorism laws to criminalize our resistance to some of the worst behaviors of these kinds of entities. So I think that is the big picture that we face today, and we really would like the states to help us with this. I know there has been a process within the United Nations just recently in September 13, 2014, that was even the anniversary of our UN declaration. Ecuador presented a resolution before the Human Rights Commission asking for the UN to start talking about a binding treaty, legally binding treaty on transnational corporations. No? And this was signed on by 85 countries, including all the African countries, the Arab states, Venezuela, Ecuador, Nicaragua, Bolivia, and this is really a very major step because it brings back again the need to have stronger recommendations and regulations that will control the behavior and regulate the behavior of major economic entities that are now defining what development should be in our communities. I say this because, many even countries now are being sued by corporations because they are adhering to the highest environmental and human rights standards. For instance, the Swedish corporation Vattenfall, sued the German government on this coal power plant that Vattenfall is operating in Germany on the grounds that they have regulated this behavior of this company on the basis of its environmental standards. The high environmental standards of Germany is causing loss of profits for this corporation. And recently, in November last year, Ecuador was sued. There was a Supreme Court decision of Ecuador Supreme Court against Chevron, which was upholding the decision to get Chevron to pay for the environmental pollution it did in the country. And now this is being challenged by Chevron. No? So this situation really has brought countries, states to question now what is the role of the international community in regulating the behavior. Of course, as indigenous peoples, we have been trying to sue here and there, but we almost don't succeed. We have very few success stories about that. But in this case, it's not just indigenous peoples, it's also the states that are being sued on the basis that they are violating bilateral investment treaties and that they are preventing the future profits of these corporations because they are regulating them on the basis of environmental and social and human rights standards. So that is the situation we face now. And I think we really should work hard together with the states, number one, to really see how we can help each other in regulating uncontrolled behavior of many of these corporations. And when I say corporations, it's not just private corporations, it's also state corporations, because increasingly there are now state corporations operating in the same way. And I think that has to be addressed. It is to the interest both of indigenous peoples and states to really work hard for the implementation of human rights standards, social standards, and environmental standards. If we cannot do that, then we cannot really leave anything to the future generations, and that is really reneging on our responsibilities as indigenous peoples. The other point I want to say is that, there is now an increasing undermining of human rights standards, human rights-based approach within the United Nations. Increasingly, what is being talked about is public-private partnerships, the role of the market. I think indigenous peoples and states have to work together to both talk about the the market-based approaches and the non-market-based approaches. We cannot just be focusing on the market. The market is not going to solve all our problems. There are also non-market approaches which have to be adapted, which have to be used. And I just came from the negotiations on climate change, and this was a big debate, because we are pushing that when you talk about forest management and the role of forests in climate change mitigation, we cannot just be focusing on the market. We have to really look at the non-market approaches. We have to look at non-carbon benefits. We are not just talking about carbon in the forest. We are talking about the multiple functions of forests. And indigenous peoples have been fighting for this for a long time. And that is where we should be working together. So I think my main message is that it is to the interest of both states and indigenous peoples to really talk about what national development should be. We should create spaces wherein we can talk about what national development should be, how the rights to free, prior, informed consent can be respected, how inclusion and consultation can be made more meaningful, how to remove the laws that criminalizes indigenous peoples, militarization taking place in their communities, so that we will have the possibility of developing our communities to really be self-sustaining communities, because this is not just a service for ourselves, it's a service to the dominant world as well as to the future generations. When environmentalists talk about saving the earth and all that, I said, the earth will take care of itself. No matter how much we mess it up, it will rise up again. It's the human beings who won't have any hope because of how we are messing up this whole world. And I think that is really what we need to do within the World Conference on Indigenous Peoples, strengthen the possibilities of indigenous peoples to assert the right to self-determination, which is the right to determine their economic, social, and cultural development, and also the right to determine what is their political status vis-a-vis the state and also vis-a-vis other actors like corporations. And I think that should be the strong message, and I believe that it is with the context that I just described briefly, that it is to all our interest and the interest of the future generations for us to work in partnership. Forget about just talking about partnership with corporations. You should talk about partnership with indigenous peoples and with all those who have done their utmost to save what remains of the world today. Thank you very much and good morning.